So, as far as the Patriot movement, and that's what LWN is, we are part of many patriots out there searching for the truth and delivering the news like it should be delivered. All right. Good evening, America. Welcome, World Patriots. It is September the 12th, 2022. And I tell you what, so we're playing around a little bit tonight. We got a special show for you, special edition. We're going to remember 9/11, but we're also going to talk about what really happened on 9/11, or at least some of the things that were put out there to be, um, well, evidence, if you would call it that. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So I have got a special operator behind scenes, and we're really testing things tonight. We're trying to keep it pretty basic to see what happens with this stream, and then we'll be able to add some really cool things here in the near future. So tonight could very well be another one of those train wrecks, but hopefully not. And I experimented with headline hits today. We had a great time doing that. So we thought we'd take it a step further and see what we can do here, because as I'm traveling around the country and we want to do live feeds, we've got to experiment here so that when I'm doing the live feeds on the road, when I send this signal back to my operator, we can kind of work the bugs out now and really get this thing defined and ready for us to go to use on the road. So with that being said, folks, it's a great night. We're going to talk about a lot of really interesting things. Some of it, I get comments all the time. Yes, some of it we already know. I've probably forgotten more stuff that I have researched than most people know. So we're supposed to be in this together. It's not about he said, she said. It's not about who knows more and who knows this and who knows that. The problem with the Republican Party, the problem with the Conservative Party is we spend way too much time nitpicking each other about all these little things instead of really getting on the same page with one another and moving the line forward. And that's frustrating for me because honestly, what the hell are we doing? Why are we worrying about the littlest problems out there that, well, I already knew that a month ago? Who cares? There are other people that don't know about this stuff. There are other people that are just now waking up. So, you know, I play a part here. I have a part to play and I put out information. If it's stuff that you've already heard, well then why don't you help your neighbor or help your family member or somebody who doesn't know it? Maybe share some of that information with them. Maybe turn them onto this channel so that they can maybe hear it for the first time. So tonight we're going to play a video. It's called 911 in Plain Sight. I've already seen this video several times. It's a documentary that came out years ago, but I think it's important to go over it again because it really shines light on what I call evidence, things that just make you scratch your head and go, hmm. And a lot of people already know this stuff. This information has been out for a long time. But again, there are people out there that really don't know this stuff. And I stood up for George Bush for a long time. I'm guilty. I voted for him twice. I used to go to bat for the guy constantly. When anybody would ever attack him, I would always have his back, but no longer. So there'll always be a comment out there. I'm sure somebody has a snide comment that they want to make about me supporting George Bush, but I think a lot of people supported George Bush before we found out the truth. And that's the thing is you got to realize everybody that is waking up is at different levels of that. Some people have been awake for 30, 40 years. Some people have been awake for 20 years, some people 10 years. There's other people out there that finally started figuring this out 5 years ago, and me, a little less than that, so 2 years ago for me. There are people out there that maybe just woke up last week. So let's not beat one another up, and point fingers, and go into that down that path. Let's try to unite. And if you know this information, great. Maybe there's more information that you can share, that some of us may or may not know. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start this movie. And as it starts playing, I'm going to stop it along the way, and we're going to talk about some of this stuff. So, enjoy this documentary, and feel free to put comments in chat if there's other things that you know, and other information you'd like to share. Please do so. But again, be kind to one another, and let's just do this together.
Jihad began the greatest obligation of all Muslims.
May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
It's been said that all truth passes through three stages. The first stage being denial, the second stage being violent opposition, and the third stage being widespread acceptance as common knowledge. Well, as you view this documentary, keep in mind that people watching will probably fall into one of those three categories. One group of people will absolutely deny that what they're seeing could possibly be true. The second group of people will be violently opposed to this kind of information being released, and they'll do everything that they can to discredit the messenger rather than pay attention to the message. And yet there will probably be a third group of people that will sit back in their easy chair and say, I'm not surprised, I knew it all along. With this in mind, let's begin by playing a little word association. I'll say a word, and you think of the first word that comes to mind. Conspiracy.
With that being said, I just got to say something here real quick. Okay. That's what we go through today. No matter what the information is that comes out, we're constantly being attacked for the information that's coming out. And you have those three categories of people. You have people that will 100% deny. That's not possible. What happened in December or November of 2020 was the most fair election of all time. So nothing bad could ever happen. And then you've got the people that absolutely are just violent about it. They go crazy. They want to burn and loot. They want to attack. And then you've got the people that, oh yeah, I always knew that was true. So those are the three stages that he's talking about. And even though we're talking about 9/11, it still happens with everything that's being put out. It's still those three stages. And I just ask you this tonight: which one of those categories do you fall in? Are you one of those ones that completely deny? Do you get aggressive about it? Or do you just say, oh, yep, already knew that. This is information that I already knew. So let's go ahead and roll the film.
Think of. We've all been conditioned to associate the word theory with the word conspiracy because, after all, no conspiracies could possibly be true. They're all just theories, aren't they? Well, in the phrase conspiracy theory, there are two words. The first word, conspiracy. The second word is the active word, theory. By definition, a theory is a supposition, an idea, a concept, a hypothesis. Let me give you an example. In theory, if I purchase a raffle ticket, I could win a prize. Now, as long as I don't purchase a raffle ticket, my win is theoretical. But once you purchase a raffle ticket, the win is no longer a theory. It becomes a possibility. And the more raffle tickets you purchase, the more possible and eventually probable the win becomes. Such is the case with a conspiracy theory. As long as there is no evidence, it is a conspiracy theory. But once you have a piece of evidence, no matter how flimsy or circumstantial it may be, it becomes a possibility. And the more evidence that is gathered, the more possible and eventually probable the conspiracy is. You'll be looking at evidence in this documentary, and it will be up to you to decide if this is a conspiracy theory or indeed a conspiracy.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute.
Let us never tolerate.
Wait a minute. What did he just say? He just said that, yes, it starts off as a theory, a conspiracy theory. But as evidence starts coming in, because we get attacked about this all the time, as evidence comes in, no matter how flimsy the evidence is, it becomes more and more probable, possible. So don't let anyone out there tell you that this is just conspiracy theory, whether we're talking about 9/11, whether we're talking about November of 2020, no matter what it is that we're talking about. If there's any evidence, no matter how flimsy it is, just like he said, it becomes a possibility. Just like if you buy a lottery ticket, it becomes possible that you do win.
Outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
On September 11th, 2001, 4 events occurred within an hour and 15 minutes of one another. The first event occurred at 8:45 Eastern Standard Time when American Airlines Flight 11 hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And then 18 minutes later, at 9:03 Eastern Time, United Airlines Flight 175 slammed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. And then at 9:43, it was reported that American Airlines Flight 77 had hit the Pentagon. And then finally, at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, United Airlines Flight 93 crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Now, unless this is one incredible coincidence, is it not safe to assume that all 4 of these events are inescapably married to one another? And is it not also safe to assume that if you find one person involved or a party involved with one of these events, they're probably involved in all of them? Well, following this train of thought, since there was no credible claim of responsibility, is it not safe to assume that those involved or those parties involved or agencies or groups that were involved in the events of 9/11 would do anything that they can to obfuscate, distract, or distort or cover up any information that might lead to their discovery? And if that's true, is it not also safe to assume that if you find somebody, a group, an agency, a party that is involved in the obfuscation, distraction, distortion, or cover-up of any information involved in any of the events of 9/11, does it not indicate possible involvement and even guilt in the events of 9/11? Keep this in mind as we look at the video evidence of September 11th.
I mean, it was like a cruise missile with wings. Went right there and slammed right into the Pentagon. Huge explosion, great ball of fire, smoke started billowing out.
Shortly after September 11th, as what usually happens, many conspiracy theories began to emerge as to what really happened on September 11th of 2001. And because many of these theories were not grounded with any evidence, we didn't really pay too much attention to them. However, in February of 2002, my attention was drawn to the following website, entitled Hunt the Boeing, Test Your Perceptions. Now, the original website was completely in French and was released by the French and drew some very serious questions as to what had really happened at the Pentagon. I mean, after all, we had all seen the big hole that was created by the 757 that had slammed into the Pentagon at 9:43 on September 11th. But some of the photographs that were shown on this website raised very serious questions as to whether or not that's exactly what had happened. Some of these photographs showed a smaller hole, and in some cases showed that there was no way that a 757 could have created this damage. So we began our own investigation, and that started by taking a look at some of the magazines that we all saw at the supermarket checkout stands shortly after the events of September 11th. As I began pouring through the photographs, I had one goal in mind, and that was to prove the French wrong with their website Hunt the Boeing. After all, there must have been some photographic evidence that showed that a 757 had hit the Pentagon. But as we went through all these photographs, we could find no pictures whatsoever showing a tail, a nose, a fuselage, wings, engine, wheels, luggage, seats, nothing. There were no photographs showing any recognizable wreckage from a 757. Furthermore, when you look at the size of the hole at the Pentagon, it was approximately 65 feet across, and the height of the Pentagon is approximately 73 feet. From wingtip to wingtip, a 757 is 124 feet 10 inches. From nose to tail, a 757 is 155 feet and 3 inches in length, and the height is 44 feet and 6 inches. However, when you look at the hole at the Pentagon, you'll find that it's only approximately 65 feet across. How does a plane of those dimensions fit into a hole only 65 feet across? Upon further inspection, we found that the damage at the Pentagon was completely and totally inconsistent with the damage of the planes that had hit the World Trade Center. I mean, after all, the planes that hit the Trade Center created a fire so intense that it fatigued the steel and collapsed the buildings, or so that's what we were told. And yet, when you look at the left side of the Pentagon, you'll note that there is very little, if any, smoke damage or heat damage at all. On the third floor, it's very plain to see a file cabinet with a computer monitor. Neither of them are damaged. On the second floor, you can see a wooden desk. It hasn't burned. And on the first floor, a very curious sight indeed, a wooden stool with a book that is laying and open. The pages aren't even singed. Now, each of the planes involved in the September 11th attacks had embarked upon transcontinental flights, which means that they had a majority of their fuel left over when they hit their respective targets. That means that approximately 8,600 remaining gallons of fuel would have been ignited on the 757 that had hit the Pentagon. Again, we look at the photograph and ask ourselves, is the smoke and heat damage consistent with that amount of fuel being ignited? Ms. Therese Sagnier, a certified environmental specialist and a member of the Environmental Assessors Association,
Good question.
sent us the following letter after a brief conversation we had on the telephone. She had said to us that the amount of fuel that would have been left in the aircraft that had hit the Pentagon would basically have reduced that section of the Pentagon to rubble and would have burned for days. And that 8,600 gallons of fuel had a BTU rate of 86 million. She also stated that, looking at the total weight of this aircraft in conjunction with its velocity, the Pentagon should have been reduced to the thickness of a pancake. Also, the fuel spill of 8,600 gallons would have posed a very large soil removal and disposal project. since the contaminated soil will be considered hazardous waste under Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations. Another interesting question that is raised is in the photographs of the collapsed area of the Pentagon. If you'll note the upper floor and roof area, it appears that that area simply collapsed and does not show any impact damage from a tail section that was over 43 feet in height. How could a 757 slam into the Pentagon and not have an impact area where the tail section would have hit the upper floors? Shortly after these questions were raised and the topic was open for discussion on our radio show, The Power Hour, these 5 frames were released from a security camera at the Pentagon. The only problem is that the release of these 5 photographs seemed to raise more questions than they answered. First of all, why was the date incorrect in the lower left corner of the screen? Second of all, they really didn't show that there was a 757 that had hit the Pentagon. And thirdly, many people asked, is this the only security camera that was on at the Pentagon? The Pentagon. This is the nerve center for the United States military, supposedly the most secure building in the country. And this is the only video footage that was available of the most heinous attack ever recorded at the Pentagon? Where were all the other security cameras aimed? What about the security cameras that were on in the hallways at the Pentagon? Every inch of the Pentagon is under video surveillance. Where are those video cameras? We also had a report about a gas station whose video camera was pointed in the exact direction where the 757 would have hit the Pentagon. Shortly after the event, it was reported that federal officials showed up at that gas station and confiscated that footage. In addition to all the magazines that hit the newsstands and the supermarket checkouts, there was a flurry of book releases that hit the local bookstores and, in some cases, the book section of your local grocery store. One book is America Attacked, which was released by University Press of California, and it was edited by Sarah Jess, Gabriel Beck, and R. Joseph. In reference to the attack on the Pentagon, on page 194 it states, "The jet had plowed a crater 100 feet wide that ripped away the walls of all 5 stories of the building, collapsing the outermost rings which encircle the Pentagon." In this picture, we ask, do you see a crater 100 feet wide or 50 feet wide? How about in this picture or this picture? It doesn't appear that there was any crater at all. They went on to say that it had ripped away the walls of the 5 stories of the building, collapsing the outermost rings, which encircle the Pentagon. Now, there should be no question that the outer rings of the Pentagon have indeed collapsed. We've seen pictures from one angle, from another angle, and America has seen these pictures. We all assumed that that was the damage that was caused by the 757 hitting the Pentagon. But shortly after the release of the article From Deception to Revelation, we were sent some photographs that were taken apparently right after the event and before the outer walls had collapsed. When examining these photographs, we can clearly see that the area in question had not yet collapsed. In fact, there is very little evidence of a hole big enough to accommodate a 757. The hole that we do see is approximately 14 to 16 feet across. Question: how does a 757 fit into a 16-foot hole and leave no damage or wreckage on the outside of the Pentagon? These are questions that deserve serious scrutiny. Let's take a look at some of the photographs that were taken before the outer wall of the Pentagon collapsed. In this first photograph, we can see the firefighters pulling the hoses away from the fire truck. In the foreground, we can see wire spools that were left on the front lawn of the Pentagon. After all, this section of the Pentagon was under renovation. We'll use these wire spools as reference points. Also, to the right of those wire spools and on the face of the Pentagon, we can see that some concrete facing has broken away. We'll also use this as a reference point as we examine these photographs. Now, to the left of that area where the facing has broken off, we can clearly see that the Pentagon has not yet collapsed. There are some flaming areas, and that area appears to be the only section where there is a hole approximately
All right.
14
I just wanted to say something here real quick as we're watching this video. Yes, I have heard of Loose Change. That's another documentary. I've watched quite a bit of stuff, dug into this stuff to see how legit this all is. And here's the thing. He made a statement about the DOJ and how the DOJ put out stuff. Is this the first time that we've heard that the DOJ could be dirty? I don't know. Isn't the DOJ a little dirty right now with what they're doing with Mar-a-Lago? So as we're watching this video, I want you guys to pay attention to something because I found it funny. I tried to really watch videos on both sides. This video here and people that were debunking videos like this. And the funny thing is their debunking is kind of similar to some other people that I know. They said, well, as the plane came down, the wing hit the ground and it came off. And then the other wing came off as it hit the building. And that's how they got the 16-foot hole that went through, what, 3 layers of concrete. And he'll explain this in the video. The concrete walls are actually 3-foot thick concrete and rebar walls. So how did that plane go through multiple concrete walls in the Pentagon? And where are all the parts? Look at this video. Do you see engines out there? Do you see wings laying on the ground? And he just made a statement. He said that in the book they wrote that it created a crater. Look at this video again. Look at these pictures again. And you tell me, where is the crater? Where's the wings? Where's the engine? Where's any plane parts whatsoever in this video? Because I don't see it. And again, this is not the first time that the DOJ has been accused of being dirty. And I have to make a disclaimer real quick as we're watching this, folks. I realized after I started watching this, and he even says it, this guy is not a Republican. He's not a conservative. He's not a Trump supporter. Obviously, this is years before Trump. But my point is he leans toward the Democrat Party and the left. They actually made this documentary to prove that George Bush was involved in this because they wanted to get rid of George Bush. So, you know, this is the left. This is the Democrat Party calling all this out, just so that you guys are aware of this.
Feet. Question: how does a 757 fit into a 16-foot hole and leave no wreckage on the front of the building? We can also see that the roof of the building does show fatigue, but has not yet collapsed. In this photograph, an astonished onlooker sees exactly what we're seeing. The Pentagon had not yet collapsed. And again, there is no sign of any wreckage whatsoever. No tail, no fuselage, no wings, no wheels, no engines, no seats, no luggage, nothing on the outside of the Pentagon. Pentagon roofline is clearly visible, and again, it is under fatigue, but it had not yet collapsed. As we examine this next photograph, let's take a good close look at the lower left corner. You'll see engine 331 from the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, and we contacted the fire chief from this engine company. Chief Plower agreed to come on our radio show along with 2 of his firefighters, but 1 hour before airtime, they canceled. We were told that the 2 firefighters had been placed on indefinite leave. When we look at this photograph, we can see that the fire retardant foam is being sprayed on the front of the Pentagon, and again, the area in question had not yet collapsed. And you can see right in the center of the photograph a big area where some of the concrete facing has broken away, and it appears that this is the only major hole in the front of the Pentagon. Again, is this hole big enough to accommodate a 757? And where is the wreckage? In this photograph, we again see engine 331 and fire retardant foam being sprayed on the front of the Pentagon. Note clearly in the center of the photograph, we see the upper floors of the Pentagon, again, yet to collapse. But also notice that there does not appear to be any damage to these upper floors. Question: if the height of the Boeing 757 was 44 feet 6 inches, there should have been some point of impact in these upper floors, and yet when we look at these pictures, there doesn't appear to be any impact whatsoever in the area where the tail should have hit. And again, there is no wreckage visible on the front of the lawn. Now, while these photographs were being taken, videographers from several different networks were on the scene to capture the firefighters in action as they battled the blazes at the front of the Pentagon.
Jim Angle is joining us now from Washington. Jim, what can you tell us about that fire outside the Pentagon? Jim Angle, are you with us?
I can tell you first that the roads around the White House, the streets around the White House, were blocked seconds ago. Members of the Uniform Division of the Secret Service ran out to intersections and started diverting traffic. There are emergency vehicles on almost every block around the White House. The road south of the White House has also been blocked. And as you know, the White House is being evacuated. Federal employees are standing on the street corners in and around the White House, having left the building for fear of another attack. As you come into Washington from Virginia, about 2 miles from the Pentagon, you can see the smoke billowing up from the building. Huge clouds of smoke, so much so that commuters coming into town have pulled over to the side of a busy freeway, what is ordinarily a busy freeway, and are sitting, watching in amazement as the symbol of the United States Defense Establishment goes up in smoke. So there is an amazement all over Washington. People are not sure what to think. You've got a lot of federal employees standing around in this area watching as the streets are blocked off and emergency vehicles rush to and fro. We're not sure what they are up to, but clearly there is concern about the safety of the White House and the surrounding buildings. John.
Jim, do you know anything about what kind of plane?
Be advised, there's floor collapse, structural integrity is compromised. I'll give you a report as we go on the interior. We have structural collapse.
Question: what could have caused this type of damage? What could have caused a 14 to 16 foot hole and pierced 3 of the rings of the Pentagon? Keep in mind that each ring of the Pentagon has an outer and inner wall, each wall approximately 18 inches thick of steel reinforced concrete. That means that each ring consisted of 36 inches or 3 feet of steel reinforced concrete for a total of approximately 9 feet of steel reinforced concrete. Question: could a 757 have pierced 9 feet of steel reinforced concrete and left a 14 to 16 foot hole and no wreckage? If not, what could have created that type of damage? On our radio program, The Power Hour, we have a lot of veterans and military experts that listen in, and many have called up and agreed that it could not have been a 757 that created that damage, but in fact had to be something else altogether. What could have caused that damage? Some call it a bunker buster or a missile. Now, as this controversy percolated through the year 2002, in January of 2003, the entire issue was resurrected when the American Society of Civil Engineers released a report entitled The Pentagon Building Performance Report. The announcement was made on CNN, and they showed an animated video that illustrated how the 757 slammed into the Pentagon and took out 50 support columns. Let's take another look at this computer-generated animation from the American Society of Civil Engineers at Purdue. And as we look at this plane, ask yourself this question: what significant information was overlooked in this computer graphic model from the American Society of Civil Engineers? Well, first of all, the 18.5-inch steel reinforced concrete exterior wall of the Pentagon was omitted. Second of all, you'll note that when the tail section enters the Pentagon, it remains intact. How is it possible that the tail section, over 40 feet in height, would have remained intact as it entered the Pentagon and left no entry point as is seen in this photograph. Thirdly, and probably the most significant omission of all, is that the engines are missing in this computer graphic model. Despite these omissions, the American Society of Civil Engineers claimed that the plane took out 50 support columns as it entered the Pentagon. When we again look at these photographs, I ask, do you see support columns that have been destroyed? Which support columns were destroyed? How could it possibly be that the American Society of Civil Engineers could release such a report when the photographs clearly show that the entire report is in question? Now let's look at a computer-generated animation that was broadcast on the National Geographic television program Seconds from Disaster, in which they dealt with the attack on the Pentagon on September 11th. In this computer-generated animation, they show that the wings broke off before the plane entered the first ring. Question: if the plane's wings broke off, then why didn't we see any wing parts in the photographs that we examined earlier? Furthermore, in this computer-generated animation, it clearly shows the plane almost completely disintegrating as it passes through the first ring. Question: how could it have continued along its path and pierced another 7.5 feet of steel-reinforced concrete, piercing the second and third rings of the Pentagon, and leave this hole? You can't have it both ways.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." It fooled me, we can't get fooled again.
You know, there are those that see these pictures and hear this information for the first time, and they inevitably ask the question, well, if the plane didn't hit the Pentagon, where did it go? The answer is, I don't know where it went. For all I know, it could be sitting in 200 feet of water in the Atlantic Ocean. But then again, I didn't say that Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. That was NBC and CBS and ABC and CNN and Fox and all the other news agencies. The question should be, if Flight 77 hit the Pentagon, then where is it? And let's keep in mind that if we do find someone, a group, or an agency that is involved in the obfuscation, distraction, distortion, or cover-up of any information about any of the events of September 11th, does that not indicate possible involvement and even guilt in the events of September 11th? Now let's move on to what happened in New York City on the morning of September 11th.
All right. Just a couple of things real quick. And we'll keep going here. So you guys are making some amazing comments in chat, and you know, this goes further than just 9/11. I mean, this is just talking about the planes only. Of course, there's Building 7 and what was in Building 7. There's so much information out there, folks. But what George Bush just said, and I saw a couple of comments in there where they feel bad for supporting George Bush in the past. Don't feel bad for supporting George Bush because you didn't know any better, just like I didn't know any better, but now we do. But George Bush said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So what does that mean? That means, folks, we've been fooled once, right? Shame on them. But we can no longer go and allow this kind of stuff to be twisted, to be turned, just like November of 2020, and allow this to continue. We're going to call it for what it is. We're going to spotlight it. We're going to show the truth, and we're not going to allow lamestream media, leftists, any of those other people out there to turn around and call us crazy, call us conspiracy theorists. It's just not, we're not going to allow it to happen any longer. This is just one of many, many things that we've been lied to over and over again. And again, whether you believe a bunker buster hit the Pentagon, I don't know. I'm not a military expert. He claims on his radio show that they had military experts that came on there and said that that's what they felt it was. Is there any proof of that? I don't know if there's any proof of that. But what I'm telling you right now is there is no proof that a plane hit the Pentagon, period. There's no wreckage of it. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Just like the numbers in November of 2020 doesn't add up. Let's go ahead and continue.
These are just a few of the images that are indelibly etched in the minds of every man and woman on the face of this planet that happened to be near a television set on the morning of September 11th of 2001. Most of us will never forget where we were and what we were doing on that day. Now, right after September 11th, many conspiracy theories began to arise to try to explain how and why the towers came down. Well, this is no different than any other major event in history, from the assassination of John F. Kennedy to his brother Robert Kennedy, and from the assassinations of Martin Luther King and John Lennon to the explosion in Oklahoma City that destroyed the Murrah Building in 1995 and the downing of TWA Flight 800. All of these were followed by conspiracy theories to try to explain these events. Well, on September 11th, there was a lot of discussion about explosions that went on around the building and in the building. Some of these reports were televised, but only once. Let's take a look at some of these reports and review what had happened on September 11th.
We're being pushed out as well because there was some concern that there might be additional explosions, possibly other bombs.
The entire top of the building just blew up.
The second explosion and another explosion. We have a report now of a fourth explosion at the Trade Center. There has just been a huge explosion. It almost looks like one of those implosions of buildings that you see.
We heard a very loud blast, an explosion. Not clear now is why this explosion took place.
Do you know if it was an explosion or if it was a building collapse?
To me, it sounded like an explosion.
But it was a huge explosion.
I saw the two buildings. I'm thinking it was a bomb because it's two of them.
This is actually, we believe, debris from one of the planes that hit one of the towers on the World Trade Center. The FBI is here, as you can see. They had roped this area off. They were taking photographs and securing this area just prior to that huge explosion that we all heard and felt.
We've just heard a virtual barrage of reports of bombs and explosions going off in and around the World Trade Center. But is there any reason to believe that some of these explosions might have been caused by something other than the planes hitting the towers? Rick Sanchez from MSNBC had this to report.
Rick Sanchez has been there throughout this morning for us. Rick, tell us where you are and what the latest is.
Well, I'm in that area, if you're familiar with this area of where West Broadway and Hudson come together, right at Chambers. That would put us about a block and a half away from the site of where the explosion was. That area has just been evacuated because police have found what they describe as a suspicious device they fear that it might be something that could lead to another explosion. Obviously, there's a real sense of caution here on the part of police. I spoke with some police officials moments ago, Chris, and they told me that they have reason to believe that one of the explosions at the World Trade Center, aside from the ones that may have been caused by the impact of the plane with the building, may have been caused by a van that was parked in the building that may have had some type of explosive device in it. So their fear is that there may have been explosive device planted either in the building or in the adjacent area, and that's why they're being so cautious.
In the September 24th, 2001 edition of People magazine, on page 34, there was an interview with Louis Caccioli, a 51-year-old firefighter assigned with Engine 47 of Harlem, New York, and he had this to say. We were the first ones in the second tower after the plane struck. I was taking firefighters up in the elevator to the 24th floor to get in position to evacuate workers. On the last trip up, a bomb went off. We think there was bombs set in the building. Well, Louis Caccioli isn't the only firefighter that claims that there were bombs or explosives going off in and around the World Trade Center.
At least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
if they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching.
We've heard eyewitness accounts and testimony from fire officials that indicate that there were bombs, explosives, possibly detonating charges that were utilized in the collapse of the World Trade Center buildings. Is there any reason to believe that detonating charges were utilized in the collapse of the North Tower, the South Tower, or Building 7? One firefighter did say, boom, 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 that's how it went down. And many of the television reporters reported that as the buildings collapsed, both the North Tower and the South Tower and Building 7, they all appeared to come down just like a controlled demolition. Let's listen to a clip from Larry Silverstein. He was the lease owner of the World Trade Center as he gave an interview on PBS.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Now, we've just heard Larry Silverstein making the admission that when it came to Building 7, the decision was made to pull it, a term that is used by demolition experts in bringing a building down. But what was America and the rest of the world told as to why Building 7 came down?
About an hour ago, World Trade Center Building Number 7 collapsed, a 42-story building, weakened by the devastation that had occurred earlier today.
We've all seen controlled demolitions on television.
Okay,
Office
just
buildings,
real quick.
sports
I had a
stadiums, all
little
brought down by
delay right there. So yes, there was many reports about explosions happening. Listen, I watched so much stuff over the weekend about this, how bodies were found, and the coroners looked at the bodies and said that there's only one way that the body could have turned out the way that it has, and that's by explosion. And we're talking coroners that have been in the medical field for 40 plus years. These aren't students. These are veterans. These are seasoned coroners. They looked at the body and they said there's no way a building collapsing and crushing a body would have done anything like that. So again, initial reports, lots of explosions. You just heard the gentleman right there say, hey, we decided because of safety reasons we were going to pull it, which is a term used in demolition. Now listen to the explanation that this guy starts talking about when they're talking about demolition and explosions. This is something that they can't rush out there and just set up in a couple hours. Okay. This type of demolition that they're talking about has to be pre-planned. And when I mean pre-planned, it has to be put out there. They have to plan it weeks and weeks and weeks in advance, a month in advance. They have to look at the structure of the building. They have to go into the blueprints. They have to understand how this collapse will happen. And then it takes time to set all those explosives. So if anybody tells you, hey, you know, they went in there, yeah, demolition happened because the building was going to fall down. No, that was already planned. That was already set up. Now, for him to make that decision at this time, Building 7, we all know what happened in Building 7.
Controlled charges. And these charges and controlled demolitions take weeks of planning. They have to bring in experts and do a structural analysis of the buildings, study which beams, which girders have to have charges placed on them. And then a team of explosive experts has to come and set the charges, wire them all together in sequence. And then, finally, after everything is clear, they let the building go, or pull it. Are we to believe that 8 hours after a surprise attack in New York City, they were able to pull Building 7? How is this possible had it not been planned in advance? And if they did have planned detonation charges in place in Building number 7, is it possible that there were charges in Building 6, or 5, or 4, or the North Tower, or the South Tower?
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
As if they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running. Just ran.
Ladies and gentlemen, so far we've seen that we were deceived, if not flat out lied to, about many of the events of September 11th. From the controversy about whether or not Flight 77 actually hit the Pentagon, to whether or not there were bombs or explosives or detonating charges utilized in any of the buildings that collapsed in the World Trade Center. And also Larry Silverstein making the admission that when it came to Building 7, they made the decision to pull it. And now we come to the main events of September 11th. North and South Towers being hit by airliners that were supposedly hijacked by terrorists. Let's take a look at some of the clips that we've all seen over and over again. On April 15th of 2004, we received a news release that alerted us to a website that was entitled www.letsroll911.org. Phil Jahan, the webmaster for this website, had taken the video clips that you've just seen and slowed them down and examined them frame by frame, and what he found was astounding. There are several different anomalies that need to be examined and questioned. First of all, what is attached to the bottom of the plane that hit the South Tower? And second of all, what is that brief flash that occurs just as the plane makes impact? Now, when we first looked at this video footage, I said to myself, well, this video footage could very well be manipulated. So I wanted to check it out myself. Well, we went and found the DVD that we had purchased shortly after September 11th entitled America Remembers. This was directly from CNN. We took this DVD and put it in our machine and examined the very clip that you've just seen. Let's take a look at it. Let's take another look at this clip in slow motion, but before we do, keep in mind that sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. We've all seen this video clip, and there have been many publications that have taken frames from this video and published them in hundreds of magazines. Here's an example. On page 3, a full-size blow-up of this picture. And in this magazine, it was published on page 4. And on the back of this book that we discussed earlier, it's on the back cover. I suggest you all take a copy of your magazines and books, and if you have the video footage, take a good hard look. We've all got this. Now let's take a look at this in slow motion. As the plane approaches the South Tower, notice carefully the belly of the plane. There appears to be something attached, and just as it hits the building, there's a flash. Let's take another look in super slow motion. Let's look at this photograph that was taken near Ground Zero. On the right, we see the South Tower, and the smoke that's rising into the sky is emanating from the North Tower, which is completely hidden from view. On the left, just entering the field of vision of the camera, we see the plane just before it hits the South Tower. Note a couple of items here. The engine on the right wing has a shadow, and the shadow moves towards the front of the plane and off of the plane. So the anomaly that appears to be attached to the belly of this plane could not be caused by a shadow. Also note that the item that appears to be attached to the belly of this plane is on the right side. This plane has something that is not symmetrical on the bottom of the plane. When we compare that with the bottom of a regular 767, we'll note that a normal 767 has a belly that is smooth. This plane does not. In the summer of 2003, in Barcelona, Spain, a publication by the name of La Vanguardia did an investigative report on the plane that slammed into the South Tower. After a thorough digital image analysis performed by a Spanish university, the investigators came to the conclusion that the anomaly was three-dimensional in nature and could not have been caused by shadows or reflections. Question: is it outside the realm of possibilities that an object of this size and shape could be attached to the belly of a plane of this type? Now let's take another good hard look at this video footage. As the plane approaches, it is irrefutable that there is something attached to the bottom of this plane and a distinct flash as it makes contact. Now there are some that would say that this is a trick of light, a reflection. Well, let's keep in mind that if you hold a mirror in your hand and reflect the sun's rays, that reflection only goes where you aim that reflection. So a reflection should only be seen from one particular angle. Let's take a look at this event from another angle. And now let's take a look at it again from a third angle. And now let's take a look at it one more time from a fourth angle. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just seen a very interesting event indeed. Not recorded by one, but recorded by 4 different cameras from 4 different angles. There can be no doubt that this is not the result of a reflection of any sort, but in fact was a flash caused by an explosion, a detonation, a missile. Something happened. That was not a terrorist with a box cutter. Let's take another look at the object attached to the belly of this plane and ask yourself this question. Could something this big have gone unnoticed by the
We'll stop that here for just a second.
crew, the baggage?
This show's going to go a little bit longer than anticipated tonight, folks. We got a little bit of a late start, which is fine, but I think this information is very important, not only about 9/11, but just the proof that we've been lied to many, many times over the decades, over the last 100 years. And it's important for us to educate ourselves now. So I just want to thank everybody out there who sent your support in tonight. I seen a couple of them pop up. I'm not running the software tonight, but I did see a couple of them come in and a couple of coffees come in. So thank you for the support. I do really appreciate that. But more importantly, share these videos out. If you guys can share this out to your family, to your friends, to your coworkers, I think it's important for them to see this type of thing, because this is stuff you're not going to see on lamestream media. They're not going to put this information out. Even Fox News will not put this information out. So remember what he said at the beginning. A theory is a theory until you have even the flimsiest of evidence before it becomes a possibility. All right, we'll go ahead and roll the film.
Baggage handlers, the service personnel at a commercial airport? The obvious answer is no, it would have been noticed. Which raises the question, where did this plane take off from? And was it in fact a commercial airliner at all?
That was not American Airlines! That was not an American Airlines!
The plane was a larger plane. This was larger.
And dove to the other side and crashed right in. An explosion was so terrific it looked like it had dynamite in it. The ball of fire that came flying out of that one was even worse than the first one. And we were standing there and I said, I can't believe this. And sure enough, there it was, another plane. The plane wasn't no airline or anything. It was a twin-engine, big gray plane.
Mark Bernbach, a Fox employee, is on the phone with us. Mark witnessed this from what we understand. Mark, were you close enough to be able to see any markings on the airplane?
Hi, gentlemen. How you doing? Yeah, there was definitely a blue logo. It was like a circular logo on the front of the plane, towards the definitely towards the front. It definitely did not look like a commercial plane. I didn't see any windows on the sides, and definitely very low. And I'm completely panicked. You're freaking out. I cannot believe what I just saw.
We are all shaken by this. We are watching the video now back live, but the upper floors of the World Trade Center in Manhattan in flames now after apparently two large airplanes, we're talking about jetliners here, slammed into the sides right around 9 o'clock this morning. Mark, if what you say is true, those could be cargo planes or something like that. You said you didn't see any windows in the side?
I didn't see any windows in the sides. I saw the plane flying low. I was probably like a block away from the subway in Brooklyn, and that plane came down very low. And again, it was not a normal flight that I've ever seen at an airport. It was a plane that had a blue logo on the front, and it did not look like it belonged in this area.
We've just heard Mark Bernbach describe what he saw on September 11th of 2001 when he worked for the Fox News Network. Well, we spoke with Mr. Bernbach in September of 2004, and he stands by his story. Now let's take another look at the clip where the woman screams, "That was not an American Airlines." There are those that would try to say that we've dubbed in the voice or somehow altered the sound portion of this video clip. This time, watch carefully the woman on the right half of the screen.
That was not American Airlines! That was not an American Airlines! That was not American Airlines!
Now, we've just heard testimony that refutes the official report that a commercial airliner hit the World Trade Center. Well, if it wasn't a commercial airliner, it would have to be either a private or a military aircraft, and I think we can rule out private aircraft.
I didn't see any windows on the sides. I saw the plane flying low. I was probably...
The plane wasn't no airline or anything. It was a twin-engine, big gray plane.
Now, if this was a military plane, that would explain the possibility that there was something mounted on the belly of the plane. Now, Phil Jahan, webmaster of the website letsroll911.org, and many other people have postulated that this indeed was a pod of some sort mounted to the belly of the plane. Many of our listeners are ex-military and have agreed that this is a distinct possibility. When you couple this with the mysterious flash that occurs on the side of the World Trade Center just as the plane makes contact, I think we can probably agree that there was some sort of an incendiary or an explosive that would serve as a match to ignite the enormous amount of fuel that would be dispersed as soon as the plane hit the building. Let's take another look at this one clip And you'll notice that the flash is a separate event than the contact of the fuselage as it hits the building. Some folks have stated that the flash was a result of the fuselage making contact with the Trade Center building. But as you can see, the flash is indeed to the right of the fuselage, and in fact, as the fuselage makes contact with the World Trade Tower, you can see a reflection of the flash in the fuselage, which further supports the contention that these are two separate events. Admittedly, what we've seen so far in this presentation is disturbing to say the least. To find that we were not necessarily told the truth about what happened at the Pentagon on September 11th, and now, according to the clips that you've just seen and the testimony that you've just heard, there was a whole lot more to the story when Flight 175 hit the South Tower. Well, I needed more information. I needed more evidence that showed that there was something else going on September 11th. And the only way to get more information was to go to the first plane, Flight 11, the American airliner that hit the North Tower. The French filmmakers, the Naudet brothers, were in New York City doing a documentary about the New York City firefighters. And this clip is the only known footage of the first plane hitting the first tower. Let's take another look at this video clip, this time in slow motion. You'll notice that as the plane approaches the tower, first of all, we're too far away to get a clear shot in any detail of the plane. So therefore, it's hard to make out whether or not there was anything attached to the bottom of this plane, as was the case with Flight 175. However, there is another similarity. Just as the plane makes impact, there is a flash. Let's look at it again. And keep in mind that as we watch this plane make impact, this flash occurs just before the plane crashes into the North Tower. This time, as we watch this clip, note the shadow rising from the lower right of the Trade Center tower, and keep in mind that the shadow won't reach the impact point before the plane and vice versa. This is very important because the flash occurs before the shadow and the plane meet. This time, let's look at this clip in reverse. You'll notice that as the plane slowly backs out of the North Tower, it is clear of the tower, and then the flash occurs, indicating that the flash occurred before the plane made impact on the North Tower. One more time, this video clip showing the flash as the plane hit the North Tower. Now, this video clip that we've just examined came again from the Naudet brothers documentary that was being filmed in the streets of New York City on the morning of September 11th. This documentary about the New York City firefighters was going to be assembled at a later date, and it was not televised. In fact, there was no live coverage at all of Flight 11 as it hit the North Tower. After all, it was a surprise attack. So if there was no live television coverage of the first plane hitting the first tower, how do we explain the following comment from George Walker Bush?
What was the first thing that went through your head when you heard that a plane crashed into the first?
Well, I was sitting in a schoolhouse in Florida. I'd gone down to tell my little brother what to do, and you go ahead and sit down. Just kidding, Jeb. And it's the mother in me. Anyway, I was sitting there, and my chief of staff, well, first of all, when we walked in the classroom, I had seen this plane fly into the first building. There was a TV set on, and you know, I thought it was pilot error.
You know, right off the bat, there will probably be some folks out there that will try to minimize or negate what we've discussed in this program and turn it into some sort of a political football. They'll say we're left-wingers, or we're Democrat, liberal types, and we're Bush bashing. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Let's not forget that it was under the Clinton administration that we launched a missile attack in Afghanistan and Sudan to destroy what turned out to be an aspirin factory because they had bad intel that they were manufacturing chemicals. It's happening again, folks. It has nothing to do with liberal versus conservative, or Democrat versus Republican, or right versus left. It has everything to do with right versus wrong. On September 11th, it was reported that the passengers of Flight 93 were in the process of overcoming terrorists who had taken over the plane using box cutters. And in the process, the plane crashed.
Okay, let's just stop it right there for a minute. I like what he just said, because that's what we're trying to do when we talk about November of 2020. It's not about right versus left. It's not about Republican versus Democrat. It's about what's right. And what happened in November of 2020 was not right, period. Right? So let me be clear about this, because I've been accused of this before. Just because we're covering this right now does not mean that LW believes that nobody died on 9/11. Okay? It's shameful that I even have to say something like this, because the critics out there like to twist my words. I still believe that we lost nearly almost 3,000 people that day. It was the greatest attack, in my opinion, on American soil. But who did the attack? Who is responsible for this? Is it Al-Qaeda, or is it our government? So I do believe that many, many people lost their lives. There was a question in chat about, well, what about the people on the planes? That part I'm not clear about. Okay, so I don't know really anything about the people on the planes, but the people in the buildings, the firefighters, the first responders, we lost so many that day. And so let me be clear about that. Those buildings, I watched other videos, and those buildings were built to withstand multiple plane attacks. And again, I saw this, I don't even know what to call this guy, but he did a debunking video. He is a steel worker, and he heated up some rebar, and he told people that yes, the building could collapse as long as those structures were under enough heat. Well, there wasn't enough heat. So that debunking that he did was just an absolute joke. He probably should have stayed off of the TV screen when he did that. The other thing is that people are probably not aware of, which I've seen other videos, they were running all kinds of military drills that day. And when I mean by military drills, I mean they were running drills where normally they said less than 10 minutes. If there was a plane that went out of communication, off track, or they lost, that the Air Force and other military forces were prepared to get in the air, and in less than 10 minutes, they could either recover the plane or shoot the plane down. And what's very strange about that day is they happened to be running drills that took those types of aircrafts completely out of that airspace and out of that area where they could not respond fast enough. I found that fascinating, that little piece of information. Why were they running drills on that specific day to where the military could not react fast enough? I saw another comment in there, and I want to bring this point up to you guys. They said we were glued to the TV, had to pull ourselves away from the TV. I was the same way on 9/11, but what else can you say that's happened to all of us recently? November of 2020, December of 2020, January of 2021, with everything going on. These guys have manipulated us. They have controlled us through Mockingbird. And this stuff is things that I want to show you guys so that you can educate your children, so that you can educate your grandchildren, and put this information out there so that Americans and patriots start waking up all over, not just America, but across the world, knowing that this one world government, this new world order is out there. It's real, and their whole end game is to control each and every one of us. We will own nothing and be happy. We'll eat insects and be happy. And this is just part of it. This is one little piece of that puzzle that I'm sharing with you guys tonight. And remember this, they controlled you by gluing you to that TV with chaos and with fear, just like they did with J6, just like they did in November of 2020. Chaos and fear. That's how they control the masses. We'll go ahead and roll the film.
Pennsylvania at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, if Flight 93 crashed in Shanksville at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, how do we explain the following story that was carried by WCPO-TV Channel 9 in Cincinnati, Ohio? This story was posted on the internet at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time by web producer Liz Foreman. The headline reads, "Plane lands in Cleveland, bomb feared aboard." A Boeing 767 out of Boston made an emergency landing Tuesday at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport due to concerns that it may have a bomb aboard, said Mayor Michael R. White. United identified the plane as Flight 93. If United Airlines Flight 93 crashed at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, then how could Flight 93 also have landed at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, been evacuated, and searched for a bomb, as was reported at 11:43 Eastern Time by Liz Foreman from WCPO-TV in Cincinnati? Which flight was the real Flight 93? Which flight crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania? And now we come to the $10,000 question. How is it possible that in the sleepy town of Versailles, Missouri, in a little production studio, we can do an in-depth analysis and a slow-motion expose of video footage that's been at the fingertips of every major news network all this time? How is it possible that they can show you slow-motion video of car crashes and basketball games, and they can do frame-by-frame analysis of major events in history like the JFK assassination, and yet they haven't seen fit to show you one slow-motion picture of these planes hitting the towers? Why is it that shortly after September 11th, it was decided that it would be too painful for America to see these videos anymore, and so they decided to stop showing them? Maybe now we know why they stopped showing these videos. And maybe we should have nothing but contempt for the mainstream networks for withholding this information. After all, if you become aware of a lie, and you do nothing to expose the lie, you then become part of the lie. Has this ever happened before in American history? Have the mainstream media networks ever suppressed information in regard to terrorist attacks in this country?
Appears to be the Oklahoma County Bomb Squad. It's their bomb disposal unit, essentially, is what it is, and it is what they would use to, if the report that we gave you just a few moments ago turns out to be correct, that they have found a second explosive device of some kind inside this building, they'll back that trailer down there, and the bomb squad folks will go in, and they will use that trailer. You see the bucket on the back there, sort of, this is how they would transport the explosive device away from this populated area to try to do something with it.
Now confirmed through federal authorities that a second bomb has been found inside that federal building in Oklahoma City. It was an explosion at 9 o'clock this morning that did that damage you're looking at right there, blowing off the entire north face of that building. Again, you're looking at the north face there. A second bomb was found on the east side of that building. A bomb squad is on the scene. That second bomb has not exploded. We don't know quite the status yet, if they've managed to defuse it, but it has been confirmed that a second bomb was found on the east side of that building.
I just took a look down the street at the Morrow building again. I see another bomb truck going, so apparently they're going to try to get out that third bomb that's been talked about. Still a lot of activity around the Morrow building. Security concerns that another one still might go off. That's what everybody's worried about.
At the present time, the medical teams downtown are unable to get into the wreckage to retrieve more of the injured because of the presence of other bombs in the area. I've been told by the police department that just as soon as those bombs are defused, they will permit the medical teams to enter.
Just for a second, we want to update our audience that the Justice Department is reporting that a second explosive device has been found in the A.P. Murrah building in downtown Oklahoma City. Mike, you're still with us, aren't you?
Yes, I am, and I might tell you in addition to that, in fact, what we were told at the scene a few minutes ago was that, in fact, 2 different explosive devices were found in addition to the one that went off.
So a total of 3,
A total of 3, and of course then there was mass confusion whenever there were hundreds of spectators in the area, and when they heard that there were other bombs in the building, people were running from the area in the opposite direction as fast as they could.
Utter devastation that one explosion caused, because here's now what we are starting to learn about the succession, or what someone obviously hoped would be a succession of explosions. The first bomb that was in the federal building did go off. It did the damage that you see right there. The second explosive was found and diffused. The third explosive that was found, and they are working on right now as we speak, I understand, both the second and third explosives, if you can imagine this, were larger than the first. So try to imagine 2- or 3-fold happening what we've already seen there. It is just incredible to think that there was that much heavy artillery that was somehow moved into the downtown Oklahoma City.
President Clinton just called Frank Keating, Governor Frank Keating, and he says that 3 FBI anti-terrorist teams are en route to Oklahoma City. Right now, they are saying that this is the work of a sophisticated group. This is a very sophisticated device, and it has to have been done by an explosives expert. Obviously,
you talk about the second bomb that was found. Devin told us earlier, we got information that the second and third bomb were bigger than the one that was detonated. 1,200 pounds of explosives in that first one that went off. The second and third devices that were found were actually larger than that. So you can undetonated bombs that were found that were bigger than the device that exploded. And if this other one that they're looking at now turns out to be something, it appears that it was meant for this building to come down, to be leveled, because of the amount of power that could have gone off. Only one explosion, it was obviously tragic enough, but there were more bombs set to go off, according to ATF officials.
The question is, why that building? And was it Waco? Is it Nation of Islam? We should find out an awful lot when the bombs are taken apart. I think it was a great stroke of luck. As you're mentioning, it's hard to talk about luck on a day like today in Oklahoma City, but it was a great stroke of luck that we actually have got diffused bombs. It's through the bomb material that we will be able to track down who committed this atrocity.
I'm sure many of you were shocked after seeing these clips that you've just seen that were taken from local affiliate stations in Oklahoma City right after the bombing. Many of us never heard about the discovery of a second bomb and a third bomb and the retrieval of a bomb and the statement that we actually have got diffused bombs. This information was suppressed. It was kept from the American people. Why? How many pieces of evidence do we need to prove that there is a conspiracy? In regard to September 11th, we discussed Flight 77. Did it hit the Pentagon? How could it have hit the Pentagon and left a 16-foot hole and no wreckage? And then when it came to Building 7, we have Larry Silverstein making the statement that they decided to pull it, indicating that there could have been demolition charges. And we couple that with the firefighters who were interviewed and stated that it was like demolition charges going off. And then there was the anomaly that was attached to the bottom of Flight 175, or so we thought Flight 175, hitting the South Tower. The mysterious flash as it made contact, caught not by 1 or by 2 or by 3, but by 4 different cameras. And then there's the analysis of the North Tower and the mysterious flash of that flight slamming into the building. How many pieces of evidence do we need before America and the world recognizes that there is a conspiracy? And now we come to the most important question of all, and that is, who do we trust? The questions raised in this video documentary are admittedly terrifying, but the answers may be even more terrifying. We offer an open hand and not a clenched fist to every man and woman that serves in uniform, whether it be law enforcement or military. You've all taken an oath to protect and serve, or to support and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And you are going to be charged with the responsibility of protecting the American people the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. Our way of life is in jeopardy, and you will be charged with the responsibility of defending our way of life and the people of this country. The biggest challenge before you right now is, who is the enemy? There are those that would ask the question,
all right,
why would
that's the end of that video. I sent the link to Tracy so that she could drop it in chat. If you guys want to grab that link, you want to share it out, great. If you want to share this one out, this video, that would be even greater. If you guys could really just share this out on YouTube, Facebook, Truth Social, anywhere that you guys can share this on a platform. I think it needs to be heard. It needs to be seen. But as he wrapped that up, I'm going to wrap the show up tonight with this. What happened after 9/11 that we can all agree, whether you are sitting on the left or you're sitting on the right, what happened after 9/11 that we can all agree happened to all of us as Americans? Policies came into effect, right? So they did the Patriot Act. They created the Homeland Security. There are multiple different bills that were passed after 9/11. And what that did was that chipped away at our liberties and our freedoms. And think about this for just a minute. A lot of people, including February of 2020, when that sickness hit our shores, a lot of people were willing to give up a little bit of their liberties, a little bit of their freedoms for so-called security and safety. And that's what happened on 9/11. As Americans, we all decided that we were okay with them spying on our phones. Because why? Because they were trying to find the bad guys. They were trying to find all these terrorist cells all over the United States. So they were listening in on our phone calls. They had access to our emails and our text messages. I have had NSA employees come on this channel, and they said there are no terrorists. There are no terrorist cells out there that the NSA are chasing. The NSA are chasing us. They're chasing the American people, the patriots. So that's what happened on 9/11. We gave away a lot of our freedoms and our liberties, and then turn around and fast forward to February of 2020. Remember the saying, oh, just put this on for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Just put it on for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And we were all willing, and I'm not saying we, I'm not saying myself, I'm not saying you listeners, but a lot of Americans were willing to give up a little bit of their liberties and a little bit of their freedoms for a little bit of so-called safety, which was 100% hoax and bull, you know what. So at the end of the video, he was talking to the military. He was talking to our politicians. He was talking to our county sheriffs and our police departments, all those people that gave an oath. The oath keepers, the ones who put their hand on a Bible and stated an oath, claiming that they would protect the United States of America. They would protect the Constitution of the United States by enemies, foreign and domestic. That's all I have to say for tonight, folks. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for the coffees. I didn't get to really interact with you guys tonight because I'm not running the software. But thank you so much for the support, and thanks for sharing this out. Share this out across as many platforms as you possibly can. And we will be back tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Devotions with LW. If you want to join us for that, I'll be back tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. as well. So love y'all. God bless, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Hoping for a sincere performance, but open to finding the moment to finding out where I'm headed now. Looking for a sign of disaster, so I can make it there faster. I'm weighing the consequences out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep going till I make it to the other side, the other side. Can you tell me the secret of how you can take it or leave it? How you can blend in with the crowd? I'm so scared, so damn afraid to look. I'm so sick of talking. I'm wearing the words out, words out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep going till I make it to the other side, the other side. When it feels like everyone's out to get me, I see the river on the bank.